Hi, I'm Ron Deal, President of Smart Stepfamilies and Director of Blended Family Ministries for Family Life. I want to talk with you today about building smart stepfamilies and strengthening step couple relationships. We'll look at using Prepare-Enrich in three different areas, using it with pre-stepfamily couples, in using it in marital therapy, in working with couples and stepfamilies. And then finally, I'm going to make some observations from 20 years of experience using Prepare-Enrich and working with couples and families. And I'm going to show you some of the things that I've learned and some patterns that you can look for in their profiles. You know, over 200 years ago, Samuel Johnson said, "To remarry again represents the triumph of hope over experience." Well, it may be hope that gets you there, but let me tell you, it's a never say die kind of an attitude that will keep couples there. You know, they really are a diverse population of people. They have diverse needs, and until you spend some time with them, you won't know what those needs are. For example, are they a yours stepfamily where only one adult brings kids to the stepfamily? Or are they a yours and mine stepfamily? Maybe they're a yours, mine, and ours stepfamily. Maybe they're a part-time stepfamily where the children have primary residence in the other home but spend some time in this home. Or maybe they're that primary residential stepfamily. Are they a stepfamily that followed a divorce? Or are they a stepfamily that followed 4 divorces? Maybe there was a death of one parent. That creates a different stepfamily dynamic. In total, there are 67 different potential types of stepfamilies. And until they walk in the room and sit down and tell you their story, you won't know what they need from you. So here's lesson 1. Be prepared for ambiguity and complexity in counseling and training. Ambiguity in the sense that there's not a one-size-fits-all prescription for stepfamilies. Complexity in the sense that there are a lot of moving parts to stepfamily living. Before I explain what I mean, let me note that ambiguous and complex not only describes their life, it also describes your work with them. For example, with one pre-stepfamily couple, you may need to schedule a session with an ex-spouse. I'll explain that a little bit later. But the next couple, you may not even have ex-spouses in the picture. So you have to be flexible and tailor your counseling and training to the specific couple that you're dealing with. Let's start now talking about the big picture of stepfamily living. If we take the puzzle pieces of family life and we put them together in a first marriage, we create a home. It has a size, it has a shape, it has a texture, it has a color, it has a smell. But then if we have death or divorce enter the picture and we take some of the puzzle pieces apart, we create another home. This one has a different size, a different shape, a different color. And then when we add more puzzle pieces back in, we create a stepfamily home. Again, it's a home, but it has a different size, a different shape, a different texture, a different smell. There's a different definition of roles. Attachments compete with one another. There's different histories and traditions among the family members. Couples have different sensitivities, and stress is higher for everybody in the home. You see, when couples marry, they don't really realize that the stress in the first 2 years is going to be as high as it is after the first 2 years of a divorce. And mothers don't realize that oftentimes mothers and daughters, after a marriage in a stepfamily situation, that they often find themselves at odds with one another and their stress level is 3 times as high as it was before the marriage took place. And children, they also have more stress as well. It takes them longer to adjust to stepfamily homes than it does to single-parent homes after the death or divorce of their parents. The average stepfamily needs anywhere between 5 and 7 years for the family to coalesce, to come together around a family identity. David Olson and I found in our research that 85% of couples believe the presence of children is going to add stress to their relationship. And guess what? They're right. It does. 78% of couples creating stepfamilies already have problems with stepfamily complexity before they get married. And half of all couples are fearful of another marital breakup should they get married. And the rate is even higher for unhealthy couples. You see, they don't really realize this before they get married. They don't realize that before marriage, couple satisfaction is closely tied to what's happening between them, and after the wedding, it's more tied to what's happening around them. You see, another way to say that is couples marry because they've fallen in love with a person, but they divorce because they don't know how to be a family. But if we help them to be a family, a lot of really wonderful things can happen for both the adults and for the children. So let me offer you some guiding principles for your work, first with pre-stepfamily couples. For those of you in pastoral settings, let me say something about what I'm not going to say in this presentation. I'm not going to talk about cohabitation. I'm not going to talk about sexuality before marriage. And I'm not going to talk about faith matters as it pertains to couples' relationships. All of these are very important topics that we would recommend that you discuss with couples when doing pre-stepfamily counseling. But we're going to trust that you will address these issues according to your church's theological positions and your biblical beliefs. Second, notice that I've called this pre-stepfamily counseling, not premarital counseling. And that's on purpose. In one of my books, Dating and the Single Parent, I make the statement that coupleness does not necessarily equal familyness. You see, many couples make the assumption that their coupleness paves the way automatically for family harmony. But one of the things you must prepare them to manage is both those couple dynamics and the things that are going on around becoming a family with one another. Otherwise, they won't find their usness, and an usness that endures forever. So here are some of the major objectives that I want to give you for doing pre-stepfamily counseling. Number one, foster deliberation and encourage a slowdown in dating. Couples assume that remarriage is about them, when really it's about the package. It's easy to be fooled by love and the strength of their couple bond. By the way, I have to add here that we too, as helpers, often get fooled into thinking they're ready for marriage. I don't know about you, but I kind of breathe a sigh of relief when I look at that Prepare profile and I see a harmonious or vitalized couple type. I just assume, hey, this is going to be an easy one, right? This couple is happy. They're doing really well. But remember, coupleness does not necessarily equal familyness. It doesn't necessarily indicate a smooth transition into becoming a stepfamily unit. Because there's independent trajectories, there's different relationships going on, right? And sometimes those things compete. So we have to remember that. Rather, show couples that time is your friend. Slow down the dating process. Time is your friend. Time will give you confidence not only about your couple relationship, but it will also help you to have more confidence about what's happening with the children and how you're coming together as a family unit. Dating a longer period of time and having a slow turnaround from a previous relationship into a new relationship really lowers the calorie count for children. It's less costly for the kids when couples slow down. So you raise their awareness and teach them how to manage this complexity, teach them about the slowdown, and help them to relax a little bit about moving towards marriage. One of the things I want you to do is discuss some common relational changes after the wedding. For example, again, when they're in the throes of love in their couple relationship, they don't necessarily realize how things are going to change after the wedding. A good example of that is a hands-off dating partner. A single mom is dating a man who doesn't have children. And during the dating process, he's hands-off, right? He knows they're not his kids, and he's not going to try to tell them what to do. But as soon as the wedding takes place and they've all moved into his house, he automatically becomes a hands-on step-parent. Well, that often throws him and children off. They enjoyed him when he was hands-off, but they're not so sure how to experience him or take him when now he's hands-on. You need to help couples anticipate those changes and help them think through how to go about making those changes. Another thing I want you to do is to spend at least half of your pre-stepfamily counseling sessions discussing stepfamily living and parenting. Let me say that again. Spend at least half of your sessions discussing stepfamily living and parenting. Another way to say this is typical premarital counseling is about half of what couples need. It's all about coupleness for the most part. We need to help them deal with what's going on around them. So we talk about expectations. We talk about ex-spouses and how things will change over time. We talk about attachment formation, developing a relationship with stepchildren. We talk about loss and children and how they respond out of their loss to a new step-parent in their life. We talk about loyalty issues for kids as they're trying to deal with this home and that home and loving people in both of them. Those are all things that are very, very helpful for you to spend time talking to them about and teaching them about. When you are working on your couple skills, for example, communication and resolving conflict, my suggestion to you is use stepfamily topics as the point of conversation for learning those skills. So when they're rehearsing how to resolve conflict, pick a step-family topic for them to discuss. You're getting two birds with one stone when you do that. You can look at their profile, for example, and you can select a disagreement item or a special focus item, and then use that as the topic of conversation while they learn that skill. I also want you to think about including children in the pre-stepfamily counseling. Start by seeing the couple themselves, work with them a little bit, listen to their story, maybe do a genogram so you understand all the people that are involved in this stepfamily picture, review their Prepare-Enrich profile with them, and then you can make some decisions about how to proceed. You may at that point want to involve the children. I commonly spend 2 or 3 sessions with the couple and then some individual sessions with the children. I want to hear what they have to say. That's information that helps me to understand how the familyness factors are coming together or perhaps not coming together. That too is information that will help you to make some decisions about what you do next. I often find that you work with subsystems. You work with the couple subsystem, and then you might work with children, and then you might see the biological parent with their children and talk about, for example, how's life going to change? How's life going to be different for you? Talk about terms of endearment. What term are you going to use to refer to this step-parent when you're introducing them in public, for example? What's that going to be like? Those are conversations that are very useful for mom and her children or dad and his children. Another topic that I want you to talk about is defining the step-parent's role. Research suggests that the transition to step-family living is easier when the children and the adults have a shared understanding of the step-parent's role, what their job is in the home, whether they're going to be involved in discipline or not, for example. Have some discussions about the between home matters as well. Co-parenting, working with an ex-spouse in parenting the children. What's the role of those co-parents? What's the role of the step-parent as a part of that parenting process? Those are good conversations to have as well. And then you might have some individual consultations with an ex-spouse. Wow, now let me just explain this for a minute. Here's the objective. You're trying to create a healthy involvement among the biological parents with one another. And number 2, you're trying to lower the threat level of the ex-spouse. And let me just say something about that. You want that person to not be intimidated or threatened by the presence of the new step-parent. Let me give you a scenario. If a biological mother in the other home is threatened by the step-parent, the new stepmom in this home, she may try to compete with her and move against her and say things to the kids that move their heart against them. That's not helpful to anybody. If you spend a one-on-one session talking with the biological mom, what you might be able to do is help her anticipate some of those feelings and that uneasiness that she might have with the stepmom coming into the lives of her children. If you can help her understand that, help her say, you know what, you're not going to lose your children. They're still going to be devoted to you and loyal to you. Now, what can you do to give them permission to get along with their stepmother? If you can invite her cooperation, then that helps put her at ease. It also paves the way for less stress for the couple that you're trying to help to empower in their relationship. So what we're saying is teach them about step-family living. But before you can do that, you have to prepare yourself. You need to understand step-family living so you can help them. So let me encourage you to read books and watch videos and visit websites like smartstepfamilies.com where you can get free content that you can benefit from and then you can share with couples. You can point them to these kinds of resources as well. One of the things that we know with pre-stepfamily couples is psychoeducation is a vital part of preparing them for stepfamily living. When they learn things that gives them a proper perspective, they manage stressors better. So anything that you point them to is helpful. I also want you to recommend that they attend a stepfamily education class. The objective there is that they're going to be hanging around other couples who are living the stepfamily experience, and they're going to learn from them. They're going to listen to their stories, and they're also going to learn from their solutions, and that'll be very helpful to them. I also want to encourage you to assign them a mentor couple. We found that to be extremely helpful for stepfamily couples. Now, what do you need to teach them about? What are the things that you really need to show them about stepfamily living? Let me make some suggestions. First of all, you want to teach them how to cook a stepfamily. Here's what I mean by that. Cooking takes time. Now, what most people assume is that they can force or demand a blend by putting their family members into a blender. For example, They will pressure the kids to say, hey, look, I know he's not your dad, but why don't you call him dad anyway? Now, what a mom wants when she says that is she's hoping that her children will begin to feel comfortable and safe with their stepfather. That makes sense. But unfortunately, what happens is the children hear things like, wow, we've just blendered up or chopped up your biological dad. You've got a new dad and you're supposed to love him and you need to love him now. Unfortunately, kids just don't respond well to that sort of thing. So we teach people, instead of using a blender, you use a crock pot when cooking a stepfamily. Crock pots are slow. Crock pots take time. And notice how they work. They naturally let ingredients warm up, the ingredients soften, and the ingredients begin to share of themselves over time. It may take 6 or 7 hours. Stepfamilies need 6 or 7 years to begin to really find that sense of harmony and identity, but it happens naturally. A lot of couples do themselves the disservice of trying to force it, and all they do is create pushback. When they relax, let people begin to get to know each other over time. Come together out of choice rather than because somebody's angry with them. They find that the family actually comes together more quickly, with more harmony and more peace. Teach them how to crock pot their family. I also want you to teach them about parent and step-parent roles and the relationship between parents and stepchildren. There's a triangle there that's really, really important. In fact, a lot of stress that step couples feel has to do with that triangle of relationships. The step-parent's role, are they a disciplinarian or are they not? When they come on the scene, are they going to be helpful to the biological parent and a voice, or just exactly what should they do? There's a lot of step-parents who have biological children of their own, and they know how to be a parent, and they want to step in and do the same thing with their stepchildren. But we often find that that backfires, that you can come in too fast, too hard. You need to relax a little bit as a step-parent. Come in like a babysitter. A babysitter gets to enforce rules. A babysitter gets to follow through with rules. But they don't really live on their own power. They live on the power that they've borrowed from the biological parent. And that's a good role for step-parents on day one. They come in like a babysitter, almost like a teacher on the first day of school. You have some authority in that place, but they're not your children. And so what you do is you focus on building relationship first, not just trying to be a disciplinarian. Focus on building relationship first. Then when you've earned their trust, then you can move more into a direct parenting type of role. This requires that the biological parent continue to be the primary parent with their kids. Now, when bio-parents and step-parents figure this out and work together and play to one another's strengths, it builds a strong alliance that really helps to move the family through the crockpot with time. Another thing I want you to teach them about are issues related to co-parenting and ex-spouses. Help them anticipate that stress and the stress that can play in their relationship, and also talk to them about loyalty issues that children have. Children want to love everybody in both households. They don't want to be asked to choose. And when parents get in arguments with one another, it's like asking the children to choose. There's an old African proverb that says, when two elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. We want to keep the elephants between homes from fighting so that the grass doesn't suffer. Another thing I'd like for you to teach them about is combining holidays and special days. For example, are we going to keep your rituals and ours, or are we going to change our rituals to fit more like yours? Honestly, there's a lot of ideas about how to do this. What we've learned is that most stepfamilies have to live and learn. They have to try it and see what works. And unfortunately, that means they may go through some years where they're not doing very well with that. We can't just give one prescription. Again, the diversity of stepfamilies makes it too difficult to tell everybody what to do. So you need to talk them through this, help them anticipate, find out what they've already learned doesn't work, find out what does work, and move them in those directions. Another thing you can talk to them about is later life step couples have some unique issues regarding adult stepchildren. Now, here's the big assumption that a lot of empty nest couples make. They make the assumption no kids equals no worries, right? Not necessarily. Adult stepchildren have just as many adjustments, can have just as many adjustments as younger children. But the issues are different. It's not you're trying to tell Johnny how to pick up his socks and clean his room. It's not that sort of a parenting issue with a 35-year-old adult son. It's more like, how are we going to divide up the inheritance? What happens to the assets that mom had before she married you? How are we going to manage those kinds of stresses and strains? How are we going to do holidays? Are we coming to this household or that household, and who all is going to show up? It tends to be an adult conversation, but yet there's still adjustments to be made. So help those adult step-family couples slow down, engage their adult children around legacy matters, financial arrangements, emotional adjustments. Have some conversations, just like you would with families with younger children. And then there's one other thing I want you to be talking with them about, and that is the fear factor. And this is a key insight that David and I found in our research of couples creating stepfamilies. It's a very, very important factor. In fact, it's one of the most predictive factors of couple relationship strength and a systemic factor impacting the whole family coming together over time. We found, for example, that 7 of the top 12 stumbling blocks for stepfamily couples relate to their past or the complications of being a stepfamily in the present. Let me say that again. 7 of the top 12 stumbling blocks have to do with their past, divorce, death, the history that brought them into the stepfamily, or the complications of being a stepfamily, step-parenting, co-parenting between households. Jealousy, fear, and worry is one of those stumbling blocks. And we found that the long-term viability of a new marriage predicted with 93% accuracy whether they were happy or unhappy based upon how much jealousy there was and how much fear there was that this too relationship would break up. The net result is this. Couples can get guarded and self-protective with one another. It's like they're looking out for themselves so they don't get hurt again. But what happens is couples then fail to take the risks necessary for love to flourish. The way I like to say it is this: when I'm protecting me from you, there can't be an us. So what drives this? First of all, not liking their partner. The partner style and habit scale on their Prepare profile flags things like temper and controlling behavior and anger and stubbornness. This really raises the fear factor. So check that out. And if it's there, find out what that's about for the partners. They also might have concerns for their children. They don't want their kids to get hurt, and they don't want them to have more injury from the past. And then there's what I like to call the ghost of marriage past. I'm thinking of a guy who had been married and abandoned by 2 previous wives. Now he's in his 3rd marriage, and he can't help but constantly hear criticism from his new wife. You're not good enough. That just seems to come through in everything she says. She might bring up a rather benign parenting matter, just a concern that she wants to discuss with him. But what he hears is, you're not good enough. Chase it. Chase the fear. You have to know what's behind it. If that ghost is allowed to haunt, it will only get worse, not better. So be a ghostbuster.